Guys, what's going on? What's going on?
Entertain the Geeky.
Hello.
Hello.
It's so weird. Like with the intro, we used to be like, guys, what's going on?
Right.
And I was talking to my dad one day, and he's like, it doesn't sound genuine. He's like, you need to knock that shit off. That's not how you are.
It sounds fake.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
Your own dad was like, you sound fake.
He
Stop
did.
being fake.
Basically. He's like, you're a smart guy. People like listening to you. He's like, don't fucking do that anymore. And I was like, okay, Dad.
Yeah, just nice little hello. Hello out there
Welcome.
to internet peoples.
So had a nice little week break here.
Yeah.
New games came out.
We got
Star
to do
Wars
some
Jedi
Jedi Survivor came out. It's good so far. It's interesting. I'm going to spoil a little bit of early plot stuff here. So if you've not played the game, jump to a later part of the video. Yeah, it's incorporating the High Republic into its story, which is interesting because the High Republic's really only been told to us in media or in other media, right? So in comic books and novels is really the only way. They haven't put it in any television shows yet or any cartoons or anything like that. And it's an era set hundreds of years before the prequels when there were no Sith, when the Sith were, when the Jedi were at the height of their power, when they were exploring the galaxy, when they formed the Galactic Republic to begin with, right? Basically, the High Republic era is the Jedi kind of going out into the universe and convincing planets to join their republic,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you find very early on in the game, I mean, it's the second place you go, you find a Bacta tank with a man in it, preserved from the High Republic era. And he communicates with you through the Force. You let him out. Cal explains to him like, hey, the galaxy's probably a lot different from your time. The Jedi are gone and the Empire rules and a Sith Lord took over the Republic. And so this guy is shocked by that, but also he had become disenfranchised with the Jedi Order in his time.
I'm such an unprofessional person.
He had become disenfranchised with the Jedi Order in his time, clearly. And the first thing that happens to him is he uses the Force to take apart his lightsaber. He pulls out the crystal and he bleeds the crystal. We essentially watch him turn to the dark side right before our eyes, right? This was the thing that he was waiting to do in his 200-year nap that he had in the Bacta tank. And he immediately leaves. And I think he's the villain of the game.
Huh.
So interesting little twist on the High Republic, which was a high ideal, right? I mean, it was, modern Jedi, or at least what we would look at in the prequels eras. The High Republic was the paragon, right? It was the virtuous time when the Jedi were spreading the message and recruiting new Jedi and building the Order. Yoda was there, right? There was a High Council still, because Yoda is, lives for 900 years. Obviously, he's part of every era of Star Wars history.
Right.
If it involves Jedi, Yoda's there. So yeah, not only is that something that's interesting, but the game feels the same, right? I mean, they introduced some new concepts, some new powers, some new lightsaber stances, but overall combat, exploration, it all feels very consistent with what the first game was. And I know some people prefer new games to be a complete overhaul and do something new. I don't, honestly. Like, if you're going to go beyond the scope of what you're doing, sure, and do something different. But within the game's main narrative, going from game 1 to game 2, I like that consistency. I felt the same with, the God of War from 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. I jumped right back into that. I didn't have to turn on the tutorial. I didn't have to look at the controls. Like, I know how to play this game, and this game is the same. Right. So I go into it immediately knowing what I'm doing, parrying, using the little Force abilities, push and pull. So yeah, I like it. I think it's it's got some glitches, but again, so did Jedi Fallen Order.
Right.
I think Respawn though, as a subsidiary of EA, they're making EA look pretty good with these Star Wars games.
I mean, that's good because initially there was some complaint about
EA should, I don't know that they ever should have been handed the Star Wars license by Disney, but they gave it to them, and we got some Battlefront games that were okay, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really play them.
pay to play is what they were.
Yeah. But then Jedi Fallen Order came out, and when I saw that, when I started experiencing the scope of what that game was, I was like, man, acquiring Respawn was a good choice, right? Like, because you see the EA logo, but EA didn't do any of the development on this. They just put the money up. Here's the money. Make a game. Respawn made the game. And I think that gets overshadowed when you're watching, the little production logos flash.
Right.
EA's the big one. That's the one you recognize. And it's just like, you guys didn't do anything. But here's the money. Make a video game. Like, Respawn should get more credit for what they're doing.
EA's history is really interesting, though. I won't really get into it because it doesn't have much to do with this, but how they came into the game space was actually kind of fucking wild because it was when video games started to become a prominent thing, it was the fucking Wild West, man.
Sure.
And it was just a bunch of people that were basically doing this out of their garage or their school or whatever. And it was really, really impressive. EA was one of the first companies to really blow up with it. And
they made a name for themselves because of Madden.
I was going to say acquiring Madden was the thing that they did.
Getting the NFL license to make video games was, at least for the people who enjoy those kinds of games, a huge boon.
Right.
And that's kind of what put them on the map and started them down the path that everyone gives them shit about now, where they just release the same game every year with a shinier coat of paint.
Everybody fucking buys it too. That's the crazy part, man.
The Maddens, the Call of Duties, they're all the same every year with a few minor tweaks.
Well, what blows my mind is like they could do a Madden game every 4 years.
Sure.
And
yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they're releasing the same game with a little more polish, right? Again, I just described the fact that I actually enjoy that in video games, but I know a lot of people don't.
Sure.
Right? Again, I talked about that a minute ago when, most people are, I want something different with a new game. I know. I'm the same guy. Same. Just do the same. Do more of that. Give me a better story.
I got my D&D group got back together, and it's been really exciting. So I'm DMing again, and my player characters, their first session, they're basically sent out to find these lost adventurers.
Right.
And it's a good cross-country trip for them to get to the coast, and they have to go from the coast. They're going to board some ship and go to another continent where these adventurers were last seen.
Okay.
So they're making their way to the coast, and they were attacked and captured by goblins. They get into this goblin cave system and strongholds. Goblins.
Your whole party got captured by goblins?
They were grossly overrun. And
it just seems like, how do these tiny little goblins catch you?
level 1's a bitch. Level 1 is brutal. So they get captured. They are being sold off as slaves, is what you find out. The goblins are like, oh yeah, no, we're selling you.
Yeah, they're in the trade.
Yeah, we have no use for you.
Yeah.
And the party's like, okay, so as they're being transported through the caves to be taken to whatever slave traders they're going to, they manage to escape, and they get in these big brawls with tons of goblins. They kill the goblins' king and make their way out of the cave system.
Right.
They get out of the caves. It's dark out. They're exhausted. They're like, fuck, dude, we got to go rest. So they go just a little ways from the mouth of the cave and go to bed. And a goblin comes up and starts yelling and was like, hey, I'm here. I'm peace. And they're like, what do you want? And he's like, we're on the same team. You're the king now. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, which one of you killed the king? And the one who killed the king took his sword. Oh, yeah. And the goblin's like, oh, okay, so you're the king now. And the guy's like, okay, what does that entail? He's like, well, you rule the goblins. You get to pick a hand and all this stuff.
Right.
And the guy's like, okay, is there a way that we can get to the coast faster using your cave system? Is really how this started. And they were like, well, yeah technically, but it might be kind of perilous. So we can do that. You can at least rest for a little bit here so that you're good to go on your nice long journey. And they're like, okay. So they go into the caves and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's goblins that were loyal to the last king that are probably going to try to kill you. And they're like, how many are there? And they're like, well, there were really 12 that you had to worry about, 10 to 12, somewhere in there.
Like the captains.
Exactly. His right hand gobbies or whatever.
Yeah.
So they go through, and the first thing the king does is orders all these people to be killed. And he's like, every one of you that brings me one of their heads, you'll be rewarded for. And his goblin hand that's kind of just been like, you're the one that's the king. He becomes the hand, more or less.
Sure.
So he's like, they're food motivated more than gold. Gold doesn't really do us a whole hell of a lot of good here. So if you can come up with some good food, well, they managed to kill a bunch of quail, and goblins love quail in my world. So
it's a goblin delicacy.
Yeah,
quail.
It is. They stuff the whole quail in their mouth and eat it raw.
Jeez.
So first head gets delivered to him, and the goblin grabs one of these quails and just smashes it in front of the party. Feathers and stuff are hanging out of his mouth, and the party members are like, what the fuck? And Golthar is the goblin hand. That's his name. He's like, no, that's how we eat these here. It's like sushi.
Jeez.
And he's like,
this is feeling an awful lot like Fry accidentally becoming king of the water planet by drinking the emperor.
A little bit. They manage to kill off this resistance, and as heads are being brought to them
Sure.
of these bad guys, and they're getting their quails, slaves are brought to them because they're like, hey, we captured some more slaves.
Right. Here's a reward for you.
Yeah, and the king's like, whoa, what do you mean slaves? He's like, we don't do slaves anymore. That's not our thing. And the goblins are like, well, what the hell are we going to do? This is how we barter. And they're like, no, we don't barter like this anymore. So you can make things. You guys are good at making things. Just trade that.
Sure.
So in 2 sessions, they managed to abolish slavery become a king of a colony and abolish slavery.
Yeah, like I said, it's Fry drinking the emperor. And you are now the emperor.
Right.
You drank our emperor.
It's been a lot, but now they've added this fold that I totally didn't anticipate of, oh, well, now they rule this little goblin sect. And it's,
like I said, players are never going to do what you want them to do.
It's my fault because I thought giving them this guy that's like, you're the king now, they're either going to kill him or tell him to piss off. Like,
yeah, but
there's
like I said, players are never going to do what you want them to do.
No. They're like, yeah, no, we're fucking totally the king now.
Your expectations are always going to be wrong.
But the king's not really making announcements or anything. Like, not these grand speeches or anything like, I am the king now and this is how we run.
Yeah, but I mean, theoretically, as the king, couldn't he just appoint someone else king and just leave?
Kind of.
Right. Like, I feel like that maybe is something your players might do eventually.
So what they've discussed thus far is they're like, no, we're going to get trade routes established with all the major kingdoms here, and we're going to get the goblins built up as like a real society.
So your players are trying to turn a little group of evil goblins into traders within the society they exist in?
Yes.
How the hell's that ever going to work?
And not because they were trading people, which is bad.
I understand that, right? But like, are the rest of these cities also inhabited by goblins? Because unless that's the case, I don't know that people are going to be cool with that.
Well, and that's the funny part. So one of the party members is a goblin, and like I played a goblin in a previous campaign.
Sure. I did Weeby Goblins back when it came out.
You're looked at with a good amount of prejudice because you're not a normal member of society.
That's what I'm saying. So how are you going to integrate this within your kingdom?
That's what they're having to figure out right now. And
but this has nothing to do with your overarching story,
nothing
right?
to do with it. But yeah, it's again
fantastic.
My fault because I didn't say, all right, they're gone. Move on with your journey.
You defeated the goblins. Time to go.
I was just trying to throw a fun NPC out there for them, and they fucking grabbed that shit and ran with it.
They always will.
Oh, dude, always will. So good. They're like, I guess this is what we're doing now. We're kings.
Yep. Yeah, man. It's like I said. It's just if you're thinking in your head, this is what I expect the players to do. Go the opposite route because that's what they're gonna do.
Oh, 100%. typically I leave things very open-ended, so I'm not caught with my pants down like that. I
mean,
won't.
sure, but eventually you got to kind of pigeonhole it into
Right,
where
and
you
there
need it to
there
be.
there are
right?
times when I do for combat in the first session, I wanted it to be with goblins because they're low enough CR that I knew the party wouldn't get totally nuked,
Well, sure, yeah.
and it would be a competitive fight. So, and I wanted them to be captured and have to fight their way out and maybe use some stealth or anything like that. Motherfuckers didn't use any stealth to get out of the caves. So instead of killing,
Do they have stealth? Are
they have stealth
stealthy
abilities. Yes, yes.
Because sometimes it's fun to put people in situations that they just have no ability or recourse to help. Like
I don't disagree at all.
putting the big dumb paladin in a situation where he's got to be sneaky. It's great. It's hilarious to watch.
Right, your armor's clanking as you're making your way through the clay. No, so they man, they leaned into it hard, and it's this new fold that I'm like, well, this is gonna make the story very interesting, and it's a homebrew world, so that's extra fun because it's like, all right, well, if you manage to turn the goblins into a viable group and a normal member of society here in our world, that's fucking huge, man. And I'm excited about that.
But again, that is going to require a lot of careful treading on your part because again, you can't just say, oh yeah, the rest of the people just accept goblins as part of this society because they wouldn't.
I can't. They're going to have to
That would be a lie, right?
These fucking brutes are going to have to be diplomats all of a sudden.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, how does a goblin become a diplomat?
Well, not all the party members are goblins, but they don't look like most of the other people. One of them's from another plane of existence and stuff like that. So it's just like, man, you're not making this easy for yourselves, but it's going to be cool.
Yeah, I mean, good luck. I had a drow campaign that I ran, and my players were super evil because that's who drow are. And then they changed everything about how the drow world works, and they were trying to like go out and show people like, no, we want to be a part of society again. And we didn't really get to that part. This was right before COVID. But yeah, I don't really know how I would have handled that, right? Because it's hard for people or for the society and the world at large that you're playing this game in to set aside centuries of prejudice.
Right.
Right? Like, no, you see a dark elf and you go, oh shit, the dark elves are coming and they're going to kill us all. Because that's what they typically do when they come to the surface. If you see a drow on the surface, it's a scout in advance of a raiding party that's about to come kill everyone in your village.
We're about to get hit up.
No, yeah, everyone. From the elderly to children to men to women, everyone is gonna die when you see that drow scout.
Yep.
So yeah, I was actually looking forward to and extremely terrified of trying to work out how that was gonna fit within the story, within the narrative.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Again, we never got to finish that game. I was sad because I had a really good ending for that game.
Did you?
Yeah, but we never got to get there because COVID, and then on the other side of COVID, well, I mean, I don't even think we're on the other side. We're just going to be dealing with COVID forever now.
It's like the flu now.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, it's just endemic now. We're just going to be dealing with it forever. But yeah, I never could get that group back together to finish that game. I still have all the sheets and stuff. It was a fun game.
I save character sheets from a previous session or previous campaign so I can use them as NPCs in the future.
Sure.
Since we're world building, I'm like, oh, well, it's not been 100 years or anything yet, so it makes sense that you could run into Billy or, Tina or whatever their names are.
I think it was somebody that I was playing Rise of the Rune Lords with, which was a Pathfinder module.
Mm-hmm.
There was a sequel to it, and when we played the sequel to it, the DM still had our old character sheets, and the sequel to it takes place years and years and years later. So like our old characters were NPCs in the world that we learned under because they were the last group that had fought the Rune Lords and won. So when the Rune Lords returned, it was like, well, who are you going to seek out to help you? The other people that defeated this evil who are like old dudes now. So that's what we did. We ended up interacting. I interacted with a previous character that I played.
That's awesome.
It was really fun. And the DM did a good job of like nailing who those characters were when we played them. Because I played a big, dumb barbarian guy who's just likes to fight and beat stuff up and kill things. He didn't have really any intelligence or charisma. He was just big, strong.
I'm here to fuck shit up.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was I like that. I like that. It's an interesting way to integrate old story into new story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Do you so do you do more modules or do you do more like homebrew shit with
Me
your
personally,
with your
I would
worlds?
always prefer to write my own story.
Okay.
People I've gamed with over the years, have fallen to the module thing. And some of the modules are great. Rise of the Rune Lords is a great story.
Right.
We had a lot of fun playing that story. But yeah, for me, I always prefer to write my own thing because I like telling stories. And I don't think I'm good at writing stories, but I think I'm decent enough to keep people engaged within my
Oh
narrative.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm getting ready to start this month, actually, a D&D game that I'm setting in the Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild
That'll be
world.
badass.
Yeah. And the players are going to be playing the 4 champions on the day that Link and Zelda fell. And I basically just created a Zelda game.
Are you using a particular game system for it?
D&D.
Okay, it's
5th edition
5e.
D&D, yeah. I basically just created a Zelda game that has dungeons, boss fights. I basically just created, because I've played almost every Zelda video game that's ever been made. So yeah, I just took that knowledge and just created a little Zelda adventure for my players to go on.
That's badass.
Yeah, and I have these little dungeon tiles, and I'm going to do it like Zelda, where when you go into the dungeon, you only see the first tile, and you have to leave the room for me to draw the next tile and put that tile into play
wonderful.
until you find a chest with the treasure map or with the dungeon map in it, and then I will put all the tiles on
That's awesome.
the table, right? Because that's how it works in the video game. You only see the rooms you've entered, and once you find the map, now you see the whole picture.
That's fucking amazing.
So I did it again. I did it just like a Zelda game. Dungeon map in the dungeon. There's a compass in the dungeon that will tell you where treasure and the boss is. And there's a boss key to find because the boss is locked behind a big door that you have to have a key to get into.
That's wonderful. Are you using particular classes for that?
What do you mean?
For the champions, like, are they all a particular class? Like, are they a normal D&D class?
It is based on a D&D class.
Okay.
Daruk is based on Barbarian.
Okay.
Rivali is based on Ranger. Mifa is based on Monk. And Orbosa. What's Orbosa? I don't remember what her class was based on. But it was all in a module that I found on the internet. Somebody had already done the legwork.
That's awesome.
Right? Somebody had already created classes that were comparable to, or that were based on D&D classes that you could pick for your specific things. So I just looked at these characters and said, okay, which one, right? He also, this person who created, I don't even know if it's a he, this person that created this also did all the racial abilities for the races within Hyrule.
Oh, that's
all
sick.
based on D&D's system. So yeah, he's not charging for it. Like, it's free to download because he can't, right? If he charges for it, Nintendo will give him a cease and desist letter.
Right.
But so yeah, it's just called Zelda Shattered Sword.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's a cool little module, or not a module. It's a cool little
Campaign, basically.
campaign guide for doing a Zelda game.
That's badass.
He also designed his own Zelda themed D&D sheets. That's what
Oh
I've
my
put all my
God.
characters on. I'll bring them and show them to you one day.
Yeah, I would love to see
Yeah, they're
them.
really cool because they incorporate the Triforce into it and stuff. Like, it's just a really
That's
cool
so
looking sheet,
cool.
but it's got all the things on there that are just D&D stuff.
Right.
Anybody who's played D&D
Just
would
different
look at it and
flavor.
go, oh, I know exactly what all this is. Okay, cool.
That's so cool. I want to do Starfinder, but I would only play that as modules out of the gate. And it's not that I couldn't come up with a story and stuff for that. I want to be a player character in that, and I wouldn't want to force somebody else into building a whole fucking universe or galaxy or whatever.
For sure.
For
Well, and
that
honestly,
game.
theoretically, you could use Starfinder as a backdrop for whatever you wanted, right?
Oh,
I mean, Just like
100%.
I'm using D&D for Zelda, you could use that to play a Battlestar Galactica game. You could use
Right.
that to play a Star Wars game. I mean, there are laser swords in that game.
Space Wizards.
They can't call them lightsabers, but they call them laser swords. But it's just a lightsaber, right?
Right.
Like, so you could do whatever. You could put any sci-fi thing in there.
Yeah, I do want to play that one. Then after this campaign, my group is switching to Pathfinder 2.
Yeah, as I say, you just recently got a book.
Yeah.
Got the core book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's So the action economy is much better than 5th edition. How they do a lot of the stuff in it.
Sure.
It's a little more fluid. It's less swingy.
Isn't that funny? Because Pathfinder 1st edition was just a perfected version of
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
And so like they let 5th edition come out, saw what it was, and said, we can do better. Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Right. Well, and they did, but it's also, so the funny thing about it is I'm sure most of the people watching this or listening to it know about the OGL debacle a couple of months ago.
Yeah, the open game license.
So the new game license, like for the new license for open gaming that's being proposed by Paizo and a few other companies is called ORC.
That's good.
Which is amazing. Like you just
what's
wanted
that an acronym for?
I for fucking get. Hold on. We'll look this up real fast.
Because yeah, that's good. If they found a good acronym that uses ORK or even
ORC
or ORC or even ORK would work, right? Like,
let's see here.
But yeah, the open game license thing, that was a huge mistake on their part, and they've done some real damage to their brand, I think. As
they did
it.
Of it. They did a ton of damage to their brand, and now there's several other people that are on board with this orc thing, and it's other decent sized publishers. So it's like, man, you might be in a bad spot if they're able to make really great play systems.
Sure.
Pathfinder 2, it has to have a couple of words reducted. So they're putting out a polished version of Pathfinder 2 that is all ORC compliant and not OGL compliant.
Okay. Gotcha.
So really, really interesting. What's it called? Open RPG Creative License. ORC license. Open RPG Creative.
Oh, clever. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. It took me a minute to go, wait, we're using just the R in RPG. We're not using the P and the G,
right?
Even though that in and of itself is also an acronym for role-playing game.
Right. That's like
it's open role-playing game, core, license,
creative, awesomeness,
so it's
it's orc. God damn it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they're doing their thing with that, and I'm like, of course you made it orc. That's super fun, super clever. But the Pathfinder 2 play system is really nice. It's not as crunchy as first edition Pathfinder.
Yeah, I've got the core book for 2nd edition. I haven't played it, but I've looked through it.
It's good.
Yeah, it seems good.
It's good. I like that they're doing the 3-action economy and that sort of thing. Starting hit points are way higher.
Sure.
Than they are in D&D, so that you're more survivable early on, but you don't scale as hard,
right?
Which is fucking sweet.
Yeah, for sure.
And apparently, you don't run into the issue where your PCs are rolling everything after about 5th level. Because after about 5th level, you have to start throwing really high challenge ratings out, or really editing the monsters, so that it's competitive for your group. Yeah. If not, they're just shitting on everything, and like that's not fun for them.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm stoked for Pathfinder, but back to the sessions that I've played recently, I had party members drop in too, and it was fantastic. They had to make some death saves, and they're like, "This is the first time we've had to make death saves in a long, long, long time." I was like,
"You've had some shitty DMs." Whatever. Shut up.
So the last DM, we really didn't get into super bad danger.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, bad is the wrong word, right? But like, you have to every now and again put your players in a situation that they can't win because they're gonna try, and failing is humbling.
So the last DM, we ran into 2 or 3 scenarios where we could not win. We were completely overrun.
Sure.
We ran. We just got the fuck out of there.
But that's not what most people do.
Right. No, we did.
Most people just, no, I'm going to win this fight.
Nope. Tuck tail. And then the next time where we saw overwhelming odds coming our way, we told this town, we were like, hey, you guys are going to need to evacuate. This is going to be really bad. We're getting out of here.
But you understand why that's the rarity, right? That's not what players do. Players see a challenge and they say, I'm going to win.
Well, we had another one. It was a homebrew monster called a Hungering Maw. If you would do 25 or more damage in a single attack, a fraction of the creature would splinter off and become another of the same creature. So you either had to...
So it's a Hydra?
Basically, you either had to ping them and bring them down bit by bit, or you had to one-shot them.
Right.
And we couldn't one-shot them. That was impossible for us.
Sure.
And most of the party hit too hard every attack to ping them. So we got to the point to where there's fucking 9 of these things, and we were like, oh, dude, we're fucked.
Yeah.
We're fucked. So we were like, how do we not do this fight anymore? And we tucked tail and ran. Totally bitched
so
out.
you just left 9 things out in the world that are going to go kill everything now.
We found out, here's what happened with those. We found out that there was this witch that was controlling them. So we ended up talking to the witch, and as there were armies coming to march on this port city, and that's the one that we told to evacuate. We talked to the witch and we said, hey, we need those things to go meet the enemy forces.
Right.
Because they're going to be able to completely stop, if not drastically slow them. So that's exactly what happened. And we
just start splitting.
The hungering maws managed to kill off the entire ground force of this army. God only knows how many exist in the world now. All these hungering maws are...
Yeah, that's what I said.
Probably
you created a terrible, terrible thing.
No, I didn't create shit. That was another DM. That was scary. I had to try to deal with that. But yeah, they were dropping, and it was fucking nice.
Yeah.
And watching him... So the party member, one of them dropped twice. 2 different fights, he dropped twice. In the first one, he immediately made his death save. Second one, he rolls a death save and gets a 4, and he's like, oh no. And I saw it click with him that I might not get up, and we're only in the second session. It was fucking awesome. When you see those wheels turn in your character's head, and it's no longer this, oh, we shit on everything. We are the almighty steamroller. No, you ain't, bitch.
Yeah.
And you almost...
and again, sometimes failure's humbling.
It is.
Like, it shows you that you can't win everything. Because one of the things I've played with a lot of different people, and I'm not going to name any names, but there are some people that I've played with where they come into it going, I'm going to win. And it's like, that's not the kind of game it is, man. It's not a win or lose. You don't have to break the game. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Power gaming people. Like, I've played with some power gaming people, and they just are so frustrating.
I think min-maxing is gross in D&D.
It's so frustrating, right? Like, I just enjoy the story, man.
Well, that's all it is.
It's not a win or lose scenario here. Right. It's an ongoing narrative we're trying to tell.
Well, that's the thing I always tell my my players is I'm like, hey, because they'll get online and they're like, well, if I'm going to play this class, I need to go this subclass. And I'm like, don't
Stop
do
looking
that.
At builds.
I'm like, don't fucking do that. I'm like, if you role play well, I'm going to reward you so much more handsomely than if you're just the most overpowered character you can possibly be.
Jacked Kratos, you know?
That doesn't matter to me. I want you to have fun engaging with your character in the world. That's what's important.
And I think in my life, I've found, people that I enjoy gaming with that feel that way, that we're here because we want to role play. We're here because we want to enjoy the story. We want to see where it's going to go.
Right.
And that's what I think is the best way to engage with this as a hobby.
100%. It's disheartening that there are YouTube channels, and they're very good, very high quality channels. But what these guys will do is they'll give a breakdown on power levels for these class. And I'm like, man, let people get into the hobby. And if they decide to be something that's wildly underwhelming, let them just enjoy playing it.
Sure.
Like, you don't need to say,
every now and again, someone wants to play the bard.
Right. Power level's not going to be
underwhelming.
Yeah. But if you have fun doing it and you can have everybody at the table smiling, that's what's important there. That's what you want to do.
When Mike played the bard in the one campaign we played it, he wrote his own songs.
Right.
He had a little notebook, and whenever it was like, oh, play the song of strength, and he'd flip to it and he would just sing it. In a little, dear goblin friends, please hear my song. He would. It was funny. It was great. He had a great time doing it.
That's amazing.
He wrote his own little ballads in his notebook.
So I was playing this gnome bard, and the whole thing that I wanted to do with him, he was an aspiring rock star, and I was going to make sure that he sang all of his own songs. And this is before Critical Role had something akin to that. So
Sure.
I was really excited for it. And then they basically made my character. And I was like, man, fuck you. And Critical Role is wonderful. You guys are great.
Critical Role is great. We enjoy you, Matt.
No.
I'm excited you're playing Ganon. That's something very exciting.
That is rad.
I mean, I'm serious. Every time I've watched that trailer so many times, and every time I hear, "Do not look away, for you witness a king's revival," I'm just like, "You're great. You're great at this." We've never heard this character's voice ever. This is the first time he's spoken in 30 years of Zelda games.
And it's the right guy doing it.
Perfect. You nailed it. No notes.
All I have to say is thank you.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Yeah, that's all the nerdy stuff going on in my life.
Yeah, it's about the same for me. I finished my He Who Fights with Monsters. It was a 26-hour audiobook.
Nice.
Fucking binged that shit because I told you on April 18th the new one came out.
Yeah.
Got through that with the quickness, man. Huh. So it's so funny. There were some recording issues in it, and I'm in a couple of groups on Facebook about it.
Right.
And people are like, "What the fuck, man? This one's riddled with problems." And I'm like, "Yeah, you've never edited anything like that, and it shows because if you edit a 4-hour anything, it's a pain in the dick. You edit an hour of audio for something. It's not necessarily a fun thing to do, let alone 26 straight hours of it."
Sure.
Cut them a little bit of a break there, but they're like, "This one's slow in parts." I'm like, you guys are so ungrateful. Like, it's a good fucking story. It's fun. Like, I don't know. People are so weird with that stuff. I'm like, just enjoy it, man, because it's a cool ass story, and that you get to see this character really progressing and really growing, and his friends are all doing this. It's fucking cool.
Right.
I do need to get you into that one.
Yeah, I'll check it out at some point.
Magical.
I got a lot of books on my backlog right now, so plus I read like 20 comic books a week.
You do read all
I
of
don't
the comics.
I don't have too much time for more reading.
I
got a lot of reading.
I stick that shit in my ear and I just listen away. I'm
I prefer to read and have the physical book in my hands, though.
Well, I think
That's just who I am.
They might all be digital. I don't know. Like, so if you do Dungeon Crawler Carl, he will do limited print runs of the book, but for the most
like
part,
having a book in my hand.
I get it.
It's just always who
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I love it, but man, audiobooks are fun.
Yeah.
I know it's not your full-on cup of tea.
I guess it depends, right? I mean, there are audiobooks I've enjoyed because of the performances, and they've gotten different people to do voices. Like when they did those audio versions of Sandman.
Oh yeah.
They got people to, it wasn't just one person sitting there reading the story to us. It was people doing the characters, right?
Right.
We hired actors to play the characters in this audiobook. So that's different, right? That's something a little different. And I'll listen to Critical Role. I don't necessarily like watching Critical Role, but I'll occasionally listen to some Critical Role.
Yeah, I like listening to Critical Role more than I like watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just more it's a little easier to digest that way, I think. Plus,
you're right.
Watching the cartoon that they did for Amazon is a much more concise way to get all that information.
Fuck yeah.
I don't have 600 hours. As much as I love your stuff, I don't have 600 hours, guy. So the cartoons, great. Keep doing that.
Oh, dude, they're fucking fantastic too.
Yeah.
All right, well,
yeah,
we'll wrap it up for these guys. Everybody has.
Yeah, I got to
places
go back
be
into
and
my
things
real
to
life for a
do.
little while.
Thank you for hanging out with us. You guys can go to entertainthegeeky.com, get you a free copy of Merle's Truck Stop in Maine using the promo code Geeky.
Right there on this guy's stomach, right there.
On my chest cavity. You can follow all of our social media and stuff there. I think in the next week or so here, I should be able to start posting some more fun stuff up there for you. I think I'm going to do, I need to apologize. So before we go any further, apologies for the book club this month. Yeah, that was last weekend that we were supposed to do that, and you ran into the car issue.
Man, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I forgot all about that.
Not your fault.
Yeah, my car just stopped working.
So
the accelerator would not make the car go fast.
So we will do a live for V for Vendetta. Timing's got a little messed up here. and it's going to delay the next book club that we do a little bit.
Sure.
So I think in the next 2 weeks here, we'll probably dive into that one. So not this coming Sunday, but the next.
Sure.
We'll do the V for Vendetta book club and move on from there. And then I do think we're going to start doing, I'm going to do a segment online, a Tales from the Table segment. So I can condense some of my D&D stories and maybe share some maps and stuff with you guys. So if you wanted to integrate it into your play at all, you're more than welcome to.
Right on. Hell yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for hanging out. As always, stay geeky.